Welcome to the UnTold Truth by Joshua Brinkley, a journey through life, resilience, and the power of the mind. My name is Joshua Brinkley, and for the first time, I'm pulling back the curtain on the experiences that have shaped me. From my childhood in Richmond, to navigating middle school and high school, to the adversity that built the man who I am today. On this podcast, we're diving into the story behind the story. You'll hear about my early years, the challenges I faced growing up, and the moments that test my character long before adulthood ever did. We'll talk about my basketball career, the passion, the discipline, the setbacks, and the lessons that the game taught me that I still carry to this very day. And then we'll go deeper. We'll explore psychology, how the mind can work for you or against you, how our thoughts can shape our reality, how trauma, pressure, and self-doubt can hold us back, and how we can rewire ourselves to break through. I'll share real moments, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Times when life wasn't pretty, times when I struggled, times when I made mistakes and had to rebuild. From my short stint of incarceration, to fighting through a misdemeanor charge, to learning who I was and who I wanted to become. And we won't stop there. We'll talk about becoming a business owner, building Richmond Therapeutic Health Services Incorporation, and the trials, failures, and victories that came with entrepreneurship. I'll share the strategies, the mindset, and the gritty reality behind building something from the ground up. This podcast is more than my biography. It's a blueprint. Every story, lesson, and reflection is designed to help someone else. Someone facing adversity, someone trying to find purpose, someone rebuilding, someone chasing greatness but battling the weight of life at the same time. If you've ever faced hardship, if you've ever fallen and had to get back up, if you want to understand your mind and unlock the strongest version of yourself, then you're in the right place. This is my story, but more importantly, this is the story that might change yours. Welcome to the UnTold Truth by Joshua Brinkley. Let's get started. Welcome back to the UnTold Truth by Joshua Brinkley. In episode 2, I talked about how basketball came more than a sport for me, how it became my structure, my discipline, and my escape. I went from a kid who didn't make the 8th grade basketball team to a high school standout with real potential. I share how Coach Larry Parker taught me the fundamentals, how Coach Ty White and Petersburg Elite sharpened me, and how playing with guys like Chris Evans, SZN Reigns, and Duval Maxwell pushed me to grow. I explained how I went from raw talent to a Division I prospect, earning 10 to 15 scholarship offers and eventually committing to the University of Delaware, a decision that would change my life. Episode 2 was the story of discovering basketball, learning to channel my anger into something productive, finding my identity, and becoming a student athlete with a future. It was about the transformation from potential into purpose. And that brings us into episode 3, where the real pressure starts, where talent meets academics, where independent meets responsibility, where the highs and the lows of college basketball, on and off the court, shape the man who I will eventually become. College basketball isn't just a sport, it's a culture. It's a lifestyle. It's a full-time job wrapped inside the academic schedule. It's a place where you either gonna grow or you gonna get exposed. And for me, college is where everything I thought I knew about discipline, responsibility, and success got tested. But before the games, before the crowds, and before the starting lineup, I had to fight to get my foot in the door. College basketball changes people, and it changed me in more ways than I expected. But not just on the court, also personally, emotionally, and mentally. This is the real story of my college years, the part that people don't see, behind the jersey, behind the games, and behind the highlight reels. Coming out of high school with a 2.9 GPA, the academic requirements at the University of Delaware almost kept me from getting in. Even though I had committed to them as an athlete, the university needed to make sure I could handle the academic load. Delaware was a top 100 academic institution, and I wasn't the strongest student. So I had to retake SATs, write essays, complete additional academic evaluations, and prove I deserve a chance. That's how I ended up in a program called SEP, Student Educational Plan. SEP teaches you how to be a student, how to study, how to take tests, how to manage your time, and how to survive academically. I struggled in those areas. I always did. I was athletic. I was gifted. I was disciplined on the court, but off the court, school never came naturally to me. So instead of arriving in August like everyone else did, I showed up in May, 3 months early, going through summer school while everyone else was still at home. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't fun, but it was necessary. Once the season started, I grew fast, literally and figuratively. By freshman year, I was around 6'5", stronger, faster, and more athletic. I remember the first practice, all of the older guys thought I was short for my position, which I was. Most guys I played against were anywhere between 6'7" and 6'10", sometimes 7-footers. Some of the old heads on the team had zero faith in me being good or improving the team. I had other plans though. There was one drill that required players to close out on the shooter and also recover and cut the driver off on the baseline. During this drill, I became the driver. Alfonso Dawson was one of the old heads who was talking smack. I specifically remember him making fun of my undersized height at the power forward position. He just so happened to be the person to line up against me when I became the driver. He quickly understood why I was at Delaware. I swept through and I put him in the room. From that day forward, respect around the locker room was had for me. Within 2 or 3 games, I earned the starting position. But that's also when the downfall started. My early success made me comfortable, comfort made me lazy, and laziness almost cost me everything. My GPA dropped to a 1.7. I goofed off in study hall. I didn't take my schoolwork seriously. I thought talent would save me. And that's when head coach Monte Ross snapped me back into reality. One day, the study hall supervisor told me and a few teammates to stay after. We waited over an hour, confused, annoyed, and clueless. Then suddenly, bam, the door swings open and Coach Ross storms in. Furious and fed up. He had drove in the middle of the night from his home located in Pennsylvania all the way down to Delaware. When he entered the room, he yelled, "Oh, you motherfuckers think this is a game?" He started throwing chairs and desks. He wrecked the entire room. Then he pointed directly at me. "Josh, I will put you on a train back to Richmond so fast your fucking head will spin." I froze. Everyone froze. That moment sucker punched my ego. It humbled me. It corrected me. It reminded me that God didn't give me this gift just for me to waste it. After that confrontation, I showed up in study hall. I took tests seriously. I did my homework. I used my tutors. I worked harder. I locked in. One fun fact about Coach Ross that I found out when I got to Delaware is that his mother was my mom's teacher in high school, so I knew I had to listen to him. My GPA went from a 1.7 all the way up to a 2.6 by the time I graduated. Not perfect, but a transformation for sure. College forced me to grow up. Basketball forced me to stay disciplined. That night with Coach Ross changed my trajectory. I went from a freshman slipping through the cracks to someone who took responsibility for his life. But college wasn't just about basketball. It was the first time I faced freedom, temptation, drugs and alcohol, and a lot of females. And I didn't always handle it the right way. The college lifestyle hit me fast. I started drinking and partying more than I should have. I was just trying to numb the pressure I felt inside. Around freshman and sophomore year, I tried cocaine for the first time. It didn't become an addiction. That came later, after college. But it opened a door I should have never walked through. And because I was searching for myself, because I was insecure, because I was carrying childhood trauma, because of my anger, I didn't treat women the right way either. I hurt people, especially someone who didn't deserve it. My college girlfriend, Chelsea Lawrence. She played volleyball at Delaware. Chelsea and I supported each other as student athletes. We saw each other's struggles, we lived the same grind, and she didn't deserve the immature version of myself. In hindsight, I saw myself becoming the man that my father was growing up. I remember one time I called my father crying, and I told him I got into a fight with Chelsea, and I punched a hole in the wall. He drove up to Delaware the next day because he knew what happened. He fixed the hole in the wall and made me pay for it. He told me, "Josh, I had to learn that punching the walls don't help anything. All it does is make you spend money. You have to learn how to control yourself." Well, it seemed that I was becoming more like him, and I did not like that about myself. More incidents like this occurred throughout college. I even punched a glass in the door when Chelsea locked me out of the apartment that we shared. That one punch cost me a visit to the ER, and I had to get 6 stitches in my right forearm. I wasn't the man then that I am now, but the lessons from that relationship helped shape who I am today. What people don't realize is this. I didn't just go to school for 4 years straight. I went year-round, literally. Summer school every summer, winter classes every winter. There was no breaks. I even failed English 3 times, but I kept going. And by senior year, I finally got ahead. I had completed all my requirements and classes. My last semester was just an internship in basketball. After years of fighting academically, I finally made it. Every year of college, I got injured. Every single year. My freshman year, I broke a bone in my left foot, but I chose to let it heal naturally instead of getting surgery. My sophomore year, I broke a bone in my right foot, but this time, it required surgery. My junior year, I started off the season with an injury. I broke my left wrist the first week of practice from an awkward play, getting it caught in someone's jersey. Despite the injury, I played the entire season with a broken wrist. I taped it up during practice, I put it in the cast later that week, and I kept it moving. I refused the redshirt. My senior year, I prayed for one healthy season. I made it all the way through, until one game before the CAA tournament. At Hofstra, I twisted my knee, and I felt the pop. Next thing I know, I'm getting PRP injections. Blood drawn from my arm, spun around in a machine, and injected straight into my knee without being put under. One of the most excruciating pains I ever felt in my entire life. But I fought through it all. Each year I got back in shape and returned to the starting lineup. The injuries didn't stop me. They built me. Even with all the academic and personal turbulence, college basketball had its shining moments. There were nights that reminded me why I sacrificed so much. Nights that made every class, every rehab, and every study hall worth it. I got to play at the Madison Square Garden in the NIT preseason tournament my senior year, after we beat UVA at UVA and graduated to play at the Mecca of basketball. The first game I showed out. I dunked on Jordan Hernandez, a 7-footer that played for Kansas State. That one highlight made the Jets from the NFL show interest in me, despite being there to see Thompson Gibson, who was about the same size as me, 6'7", 260 pounds. I faced off against some notable players such as Mason Plumlee from Duke, Trey Burch from Michigan, Steven Adams from Pitt, Larry Sanders from VCU, Malcolm Brogdon from UVA, and other players that went on to play at the next level, either in the NBA or overseas. I also matched up against Sedan Reigns from Virginia Tech, someone I knew from back in my AAU days. And now, here we were, colliding on a college basketball court. We even played games at historic basketball venues like the Palestra, located in Philadelphia. That's where I got to meet Denzel Washington, because his son played for Penn, a place with basketball history dripping from the walls. I specifically remember playing at the Cameron Indoor Stadium at Duke. In warm-ups, I realized how ruthless their fans were. I remember whenever I touched the basketball in warm-ups, they would yell, "Chelsea Lawrence, doom, 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 doom." It didn't stop there. One of my teammates, Jamel Higgins, had a kid in college, and their fan base had obviously done their research. Whenever he touched the basketball in warm-ups, they would yell, "Wrap it up." These experiences on the court playing in front of thousands of basketball fans still burns in my memory. The better the talent, the better I will play. That level of competition forced me to elevate my game mentally and physically. Those nights weren't just games. They were proof that I belonged. They reminded me that I earned every minute of these experiences because I had worked for it. But I also had the privilege of playing alongside some really special players at the University of Delaware. Some of these guys are from Richmond. Some of them I knew before college. Some of them became my brothers during that time. We went through practices, road trips, wins and losses, injuries, and life together. So I want to take a moment and give credit where it's due and talk about a few of my teammates who made that chapter of my life what it was. One of the most notable guys I played with was Devon Sadler. Devon Sadler is the all-time leading scorer at the University of Delaware in men's basketball history. He finished his college career with over 2,200 points. He was a 3-time All-CAA player, and he helped Delaware lead through some of the most exciting seasons. And after college, he went on to have a successful professional career overseas, including winning championships and earning MVP honors in Europe. Devon is a dynamic scorer and just a competitor. He was a true leader, and he always pushed everyone around him to be better. Kelvin McNeil was another forward in our rotation. Originally at Delaware, he played multiple seasons with the Blue Hens. He eventually finished his college basketball career after transferring to UNCG, and he continued to be involved in basketball beyond college playing overseas. Kelvin contributed in rebounding, defense, and gritty minutes that helped us stay competitive night in and night out. But Kelvin was a guy I've known since high school. We crossed paths for the first time in Myrtle Beach when he was playing for Boo Williams, and then we ended up sharing the same locker room at the University of Delaware. I remember him telling the other guys that Josh is short for his position, but he a dog and you should beware. Another guy from our Delaware days was Marvin King Davis, a strong power forward from Richmond, Virginia. Marvin was a physical presence down low and was one of the guys we always leaned on in the paint. He had a 15-footer that was automatic. He was also a very athletic power forward standing at 6'7". We also played together for Richmond Elite for about a year or so. Another teammate and someone who I played with at Delaware was Jarvis III. Jarvis is a Richmond, Virginia native who started at Highland Springs High School before going to go play at the University of Delaware. At Delaware, he was one of the key players in our backcourt, from scoring to creating for others and making plays night in and night out. After college, he pursued a professional basketball career, and he played in the NBA G League, formerly known as the D League. One of his standout moments of his pro career was when he won the NBA D League Slam Dunk contest at the All-Star Weekend, showing off his athleticism and putting on a show in front of thousands of fans. Jarvis's journey from Highland Springs High School to Delaware and then into pro ball, this is one of those stories that reminds you of the grind and the love for the game. He put in that work, he competed at a high level, and he had some memorable highlights along the way. Last but not least, one of the standout defenders I played with at the University of Delaware was Jamel Higgins. He was named the CAA Defensive Player of the Year during his senior season, a testament to how impactful he was on that end of the floor. He was physical, and he protected that rim at all costs. Jamel was a 6'9" center from Roanoke, Virginia. I first met him when we played on the Virginia East vs. West All-Star game at the Hampton Coliseum in Hampton, Virginia. Jamel's presence in the paint changed the way teams attacked us, a real force on rebounds, blocks, and overall defensive intensity. After his college career, Higgins went on to play professionally overseas for over a decade in several top leagues around the world, including stops in France, Greece, Italy, Turkey, Belgium, and most recently, Poland and the UAE. While overseas, he earned titles like the Italian League Championship and has competed in major European competitions like the FIBA Europe Cup and Basketball Champions League. Jamel's journey from Roanoke to UD to accomplished international pro basketball player is a great example of what I believe is very important in life: consistency, discipline, and hard work. When I look back on my time at Delaware, it's not about the stats, the minutes, or who went where after. It's about the fact that I got to share these experiences with other guys who pushed me, challenged me, and helped shape who I was as a player and as an individual. Everybody's paths look different after college: overseas careers, professional stops, life outside of basketball, but we were all connected by the same grind, that same locker room, and that same moment in time, and I'll always have respect for that. I had finally made it to the end of my college career. Despite the low GPA, despite the long study hall nights, despite the injuries and life issues, I could still compete with the best. That consistent grind, the comebacks, the discipline, the pain, none of it was for nothing. These experiences weren't just made for highlight reels or social media posts. Though some ended up there, they were made for growth, for self-belief, for building a foundation beyond hoops, a foundation I eventually used to build my business, my life, and my purpose. Despite all the highs and the lows, college didn't break me. It redefined me. It shaped me into someone who could handle pressure, take responsibility, understands discipline, knows the consequences of choices, and stays focused. Those 4 years created the man I am today. They prepared me for life after sports, for business, for leadership, for marriage, for adulthood, and most importantly, for growth. This was more than basketball. This was becoming a man. In episode 4, we will dive into life after college, starting from scratch, from being a college Division I athlete to now being a normal guy in society. Troubles I faced in my 20s, my decision to stay home and build a business versus going to go play overseas, the identity crisis when basketball is no longer there, the American Basketball Association team Richmond Elite I played for, and the path that eventually led me into adulthood, business, and real life. The untold truth gets even more real from here.